No problem.
All right.
Press continue. There you go. I've tried to close out all the distraction, my email, the chat, and
No, that does help, doesn't it?
give you my full attention.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, yeah, I'm Josh Sharp. I'm the head writer over at the DisInsider. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Good. Thank you. Before we dive in, would you mind just introducing yourself and for anyone that might be watching and doesn't know?
Yeah, I'm Philippe Thibault. I'm a senior VFX supervisor. I'm the co-founder of Folks VFX as well with Sébastien Bergeron. Been working with Seb since the early 2000s, you know, and back in Vancouver at Anthem, and then we moved to Quebec City and opened our own little shop, and has grown quite a bit bigger since. And we're pretty busy, doing well, and yeah, enjoying the VFX life.
Good. Well, that's great to hear. Well, I'm actually not all that familiar with the world of VFX, so this is going to be a great learning opportunity for me.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So every day, I'm sure on the job it looks different just from day to day. So this is kind of broadly speaking, but what does a sort of a regular day of work look like for you?
Pandemic time or pre-pandemic time?
Let's go pre-pandemic.
Well, a regular day at work for a VFX soup is depending how busy you are and at what stage you are in on a particular show, you know, depends where you're at, you know. Let's say with, well, let's talk about Benedict, you know.
Yeah.
You get the scripts. With the scripts, with your producer, you do the breakdowns, you try to evaluate what could be VFX, what can potentially be shot in camera with the help of VFX, you know, and we try to do breakdown budgets with that. And that's sort of the first draft of where the discussions start with the clients. And after that, we can get into concepts, you know, and try to help the client visualize what they want to see. Sometimes they have their own concepts artists, sometimes we provide them. And then we can get into storyboard as well, you know, depending on the complexity of the sequence. And depending also, are we just a vendor on the show? Am I the VFX soup of the whole show? On the case of Benedict, I was the sole VFX supervisor of the show. And I hired someone to help me supervise the set. Then you get into prep work before the set starts, and you go see location, where can we shoot this, how we shoot this. You meet with the production designer, the DP, you meet the whole team, the guest director, you know, and that's how we start the process. And then we start shooting the show. And once it starts shooting, you get another script, and, you know, it's sort of, this starts over and over and over for each episode. That's what the big difference is also between the movies and the series, you know. The series these days, it's like making, in the case of Benedict, 8 little movies in a row, you know, very, and they start overlapping each other. And that's why you sort of need help as well on set. You know, it's hard to do the VFX supervisor job supervising the shot, because once the cut starts coming out, then we start to have turnover at the shop, and the artist wants to start. So you have to brief the artist at the same time. You got to keep going doing budget. You got to keep going doing so it's a, it becomes quite a bit of work at one point, and then the shoot stops, and then you can focus on the VFX. And yeah, like, yeah, that's about it.
Well, and the other thing too, like you said, with the 8 mini movies, you have to make sure they look consistent too, right? I mean, you have to go, each episode has to look like it's coming from the same world, and it has to look like it all fits together, so you probably have to watch a lot of it back to back and make sure it all sort of connects.
And yeah, and that's also why during a series, the big boss are the showrunner, the writers, which is a big difference with the movies, where the big boss is the director, because the director is involved for the whole movie. In the series, where the director are guest directors, you know. Sure. So the people that make sure that the show is consistent and stay the same and look the same are the showrunners, who are involved in writing all the episodes, who also involved supervising all the episode. In this case, it was Todd and Darren and Phil and Matt, like collaborating. The show creator being Phil and Matt, they hired Todd and Darren, who are very experienced in television, and they help us. They help the four of them together kept an eye on the whole show. Of course, we work in collaboration, and that's also my job to make sure that everything we do is the same throughout. And there was also a supervising director, usually does either the pilot or 2 episodes during the series. In this case, it was Greg Beeman. And on this particular show, they had like let's call him a star director, which was James Bowen, who did episode 1, It's very cool to work with him. So overall, the team on Benedict is just like a dream star, like an absolute dream team, like the showrunners, the writers, everybody involved was a super gang, super group to work with, super fun.
That's great to hear. When collaboration works well, when you really find collaborators that you can gel with and connect with, I'm sure that's a very satisfying feeling.
Oh, absolutely. And collaboration is the right word, because that it's fun, because Todd and Darren and Matt and Phil are very appreciative of the part of work I do, and I'm like in awe. I could never be a writer. I'm not as smart as they are, but I truly enjoy working with them. We've worked together a long time before. We did Shadowhunter together, like 42 episodes.
Wow.
And so we've been working quite a bit together. So coming onto that show with them was like, oh, right, the dream team is back together. It's great.
That's awesome. So speaking of the Mysterious Benedict Society, were you familiar with this world, this fandom from the source material before? Had you read the books or been familiar with that?
I haven't read the books before, but as soon as I got involved, I read the first one, because that's one of the things I always try. And I did the same thing when I got involved in Shadowhunter. It's important when you get to do a show that a lot of people know about. You have to respect what's been done and where it's coming from, And I know Todd and Darren and Phil and Matt were very, very, that was very important for them. And it became very important for me. And I know Michael Wiley, the production designer, it was very important for him as well, And since day one, it was always about, all right, how is it made? How do we respect the book? And, so yeah, we were very much aware, and we tried to give it our utmost respect, for the whole series, the full 8 episode,
Yeah, and the books kind of came out after I wasn't a kid anymore by the time they came out, but I know that it would have been, the show and the books would have been something I would have enjoyed, I think, as a kid, because it's very, it's kind of there's a little bit of a sometimes dark humor to it. So you have things like Roald Dahl, like I loved Roald Dahl as a kid, Lemony Snicket, those kind of things. And that, I think this show really fits into that sort of feeling in the visuals too. And so I was going to ask, was there something that you'd done on this series that you had never done before in terms of effects? Was there something kind of a new thing that you had done here?
Well, as you might have noticed, the show is very much influenced by Wes Anderson kind of look, It's very, very static camera and very, very symmetric camera. And like all the point of views and everything is done in that respect. It's very colorful. I guess it's not something I haven't done, but it's something different. So the typical packed visual effect have a lot of moving camera action and dragons and stuff like that. This is like, all right, here are the VFX, it's better be good because you got time to notice it. And at the same time, I'm very pleased that so far I haven't read anything about VFX in the show, because and that's like the best compliment for me, because the VFX were there to tell the story. They were supposed to be part of the show. And if we've done our job right, nobody should really mention the VFX, because it has to be part of the story. And I think we've done that well, and I think that's probably the biggest difference of anything I've done before. The VFX are completely invisible, we've worked a lot with magic, and we've worked with creature at Folks. We've worked a lot with, like, I wouldn't say in your face VFX, but like
Yeah.
VFX that you kind of know it's VFX. You know,
Right.
it's like, this is not existing. But the
Yeah.
story, the city of Stonetown, you know, you look at it from every angle, everywhere we shot, every time we had like a set extension, we made sure it was done in harmony with the show. And, you know, like that was always our goal. Like, all right, let's not have anyone mention that it's VFX, just like find the place beautiful and want to go there on vacation. You know, it's like,
Well, I was going to ask, because Stonetown, and that was, I've seen all 3 of the episodes that are out. And you really get a good view of Stonetown just in that first episode when the camera pans down the street.
yeah.
And it's seamless. I wasn't sure if that was the part of the VFX digital town that you'd created, because I heard that there was a digital town that you guys did, but I wasn't convinced it was that one because it looked so.
Yeah, thank you. You see, that's exactly that.
Yeah.
That's the best compliment I could ever get as a VFX
good.
supervisor. So I appreciate that. And yes, Stonetown is entirely digital.
Wow.
And we shot a part of Vancouver Street there, Water Street, you know, just for when the camera reaches the street and we got cars. But even that street, there's like fake cars in there, fake people, fake signage. It's all VFX, you know. We've used the streets as a base, and production has like done some banners and stuff like this, but like the whole thing. So the first part is digital, then you land on the street, which is half digital, half reality. And then at the end, we turn to the right, and that's another plate that we shot in another location.
Wow.
And the backstory of that is all digital, and the front of it, it's a mix of 2 different plates, which is always challenging because, you know, unless you spend a lot of time trying to match those 2 cameras, but they never shot at the same time of the day, so the sun doesn't quite exactly match. And
Right.
then on the first day, we had like a big 100-foot crane, and the first part was done with a drone. So,
Wow.
you know, like attaching to that was a real challenge. And we had a little bit of a cheat there. We had to build a wall, you know, and redo the street completely. That last part we done when we arrive at the orphanage. We pretty much kept what's around the kids and a bit of the ground, but everything around, even the trees, we had to redo, you know, to be able to have like a seamless, very smooth camera, you know. And that was a fun challenge, and that was like one of the first shots we designed on the show. It was a very important, obviously it's the opening of the show.
Right.
You want it to be a good one, and you land right on Rennie, that's like in the window wondering what the hell is this shot's gonna be.
Right.
You know? And he did great. The kids on that show were great. I mean, like it was super.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I bet it's hard sometimes because when you have a regular set, you have all these conditions. You have, like you said, weather conditions where the sun might be that day, and you can kind of, in a digital world, do what you want. And you don't have to worry about any of the other things that, you know, any of the other problems you can't control, because with digital, you can really control all those possibilities. Variables, exactly. That's the word I was looking for. You know, I was curious, you've been in the VFX business for a while. Is there a certain effect that you have found kind of not your kryptonite, but something that you find most challenging, more challenging than maybe other kinds of VFX effects?
It really depends on the show, you know. There's sometimes the shot, let's say like that kick your ass.
Yes, you can say
that end up being the most challenging is not the one that people are gonna notice the most, you know. Like sometimes, let's say like that big shot, it was challenging, but you know, the first part we're totally in control. It was challenging in the fact that Stonetown was big, so many buildings, but you know, sometimes it's just a shot that's got like a weird smoke and a weird light, and you need to integrate something that was not shot or not planned for that,
right.
You know, and then you have to find solution around what would be the real way of doing that. Sometimes those are the harder shot, and strangely enough, those are the things that the shot that people don't notice the most, you know. Like sometimes like the first shot, stitching the last plate with the other plate was really difficult, you know. Like people would notice because the camera turns, goes down the street, there's a gate there, we go through the orphanage, but you have to find the right speed at which you're going to accelerate the end of the move of the first camera, because that camera stops at one point,
Right.
and then the other one starts at a pause, and then it accelerates again. So you have to find the right place where you tie these two things, you know. And these are the things that no one will really notice unless it's really not working, you know. And maybe next time you look at it, you're gonna say, "Oh yeah, I see what you mean." You know, it's changing. Perspective is changing. There's a few little things that, you know, I could point to you like, "Oh, I would have done it a little different." But you know, it's funny enough that the things that are often the most challenging are very rarely the thing that you notice the most. You know, or like the more spectacular shots. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just for the average viewer. But I bet for you, when you go back and look at your work or you look at somebody else's work, you probably think a lot differently than say if I were to watch something, because you're going to see things that the average viewer, like I said, probably wouldn't notice.
For sure, and I always joke when I watch movie. I enjoy watching movies that are like where the VFX are invisible, you know. But
Hmm.
I also like to watch the big VFX blockbuster because there's
Hmm.
things in there that are really well done, and you know, it's good to see what other people are doing, you know. But I always try to shut my brain on trying to analyze and just enjoy it, you know. It's
Sure.
like, and that's very difficult to do because I tend to just, oh yeah, no, this is not working. Oh yeah, no, oh, I would have done it differently. Oh yeah, they use the real thing there. But yeah, see, that's kind of why you know, I try to watch a variety of things, you know, like
Hmm.
without VFX, with VFX, with a lot of VFX. And for me, for my part, I really enjoy the shows where the VFX are invisible and they're part of
Hmm.
the story, you know.
Hmm.
When it becomes too much, sometimes it's just too much, but it's good to see because we've come a long way. It looks really, really good.
Well, yeah, that was what else I was going to ask. I mean, you said like I said, you've been in the industry since the 2000s, I think you said. And
Yeah.
so I would imagine your job has changed quite a bit. Could you talk a little bit about how your job has changed or kind of evolved over the course of your career?
Well, the format has changed, that's for sure. You know, it used to be HD was big, you know, like, oh my God,
Right,
we do HD now. Are you crazy? And it's funny because every time the computer gets better and more powerful, the image gets bigger and
right.
more. Like, and right now, before, like, it was a huge difference between a movie and a TV because TV was, you know, like a smaller format. You could get away with a lot of things, you know, that were not completely perfect, you know, but like,
Hmm.
oh, nobody's gonna notice, you know, it's that big and it's compressed, and not that you were sloppy or anything, but you know, because sometimes you had more shot for less time with less budget to do, so you had to get away with a few things, you know, and it was still, you know, looking good for the average viewer, and sometimes it gets old and it gets, but now between, let's say, working on a feature and a prime time series, it's the same thing. It's the same
Hmm.
format. You know, it's the it's 4K. Every
Hmm.
pixel has to be perfect. You know, so I guess the tools have evolved. Like everything is more powerful. There's more we can do. There's things that are easier to do now, and but the but mostly is just that the image is bigger. The quality's got to be better at all times, TV or movies, you know. And
Hmm.
viewer also go watch an older movie, you know, like that was done in the 80s or the 90s. Those VFX are spectacular. When you look at it now, it's like some of them you're like, oh wow, yeah, I remember that.
Hmm.
That was really cool, you know. You could
Yeah,
never get away with that anymore, you know, because people are used to see very good VFX and
yeah.
they notice when it's not very good, you know. If the integration is not well done. You know, I watched an old James Bond the other day with Sean Connery, and you know, it
Hmm.
was like you could see the edges, you know, and it was like really well done for the time,
Hmm.
you know. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, for the technology and that was like spectacular. But now you look at it and you go, wow, you could never get away with that, you know. But you know,
Well,
that's
also,
how it evolves. The tools are similar but more powerful. There's more thing we can do in 2D right now that looks 3D,
mm,
and definitely in 3D, you know, the particles and all that were becoming. It's a science, you know. It's like
yeah.
Like I have artists working at Folks, they're like geniuses, you know, like I look at what they do, I'm like, I don't know how you did this, but it looks really good and it works and that's exactly what the client wants. Well done, you know. Um, yeah, so for sure that I mean, yeah, the expertise, there's a lot of the same, but again, technology is bigger, better, and faster, and a little bit like everything. You know, you can
Sure.
watch something on your iPhone these days,
I
and
know.
notice that it's not working. You know, it's like the
Hmm.
image is so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it continues to evolve. Like you say, it's not stopping now. It's going to probably continue. And as a VFX artist, you probably will need to keep up with that to, continue to match the expectations or top the expectations of, the viewers.
Oh, absolutely. You know, like more and more we're asked to do digital characters, you know, that look like
Oh,
human,
sure.
life, you know, like especially with COVID, you know, like we're not allowed to have a lot of crowds. We were not allowed to have a lot of people. So there's a lot of shows that you won't notice, but like there's so much demand on VFX because of that year, that pandemic year, because
Yeah.
it was a challenge on set to have crowds, to have people. So there was a lot that was done with crowd duplication. You shoot one plate with people there, one plate with people there. You put them together, but like sometimes all that's behind becomes fully digital, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one thing that used to be, well, it's still challenging, but you know that we have improved and are gotten better, you know, and having army of people walking, moving, running, and you know everybody can do it now. Like not all at the same level, but it's definitely something we're good. I've recently worked also with deep fake in VFX, you know,
Oh,
like
yeah.
changing the face, you know, using that technology. And if the actor is not like a super popular figure, we have to do our own photos, bank of photos, because the more image you have from different light, from the better the result's going to be,
Yeah.
you know. And we're starting to experiment on that, and we're getting pretty good at it too, you know. So instead of having like a fully digital face, we're like literally stitching on top real image that with artificial intelligence, which is pretty cool, you know.
Yeah, that's incredible.
um, a mix of that and a mix of 3D and a mix of you know, that's one thing we've done, like even on Benedict, you know, you wouldn't
Hmm.
know, but like we have like fully digital character in there, you know,
Wow.
like we did Kate when she's on the trapeze at the beginning, the opening shot, you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, we shot her on trapeze, but there was move that she couldn't do, you know.
Mm.
So we had to, you know, duplicate her, scan her, and then we recreated her completely digital. She looks amazing, and we were
Hmm.
pretty happy with the result. And then we even used it later on when she had to be replaced by a stunt, you know, person
Hmm.
to change her head and her face because it was too difficult to do just like a 2D thing. It was ended up being easier for us to chop the stunt head and replace it with like a fully digital character. Yeah. So
Wow.
even in Benedict, it's surprising how much VFX there is. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I would have never noticed.
yeah,
Which is like you
exactly.
said, that's what you're going for.
Yeah.
Well, to conclude, I just wanted to ask, I mean, you talked about a lot of these different effects you've done specifically on Benedict. Is there one particular effect that you and your team have been able to successfully do for this show that you're most proud of?
I think the realization of Stonetown and make it look the way it look, and with as many building, with as much varieties and as much you know, because there's so many buildings, there's different. We created 30, I think, different district. You know, they all have like their a different feel. You know, we had to R&D and design a software basically to be able to have so much variety in there. You know,
Hmm.
so I think that's the thing I'm the most proud of, you know, and we use quite a bit of different method because again, we don't have the time that sometimes you get to do a feature when you do
Hmm.
a TV show, you know. Although Benedict was great for that, like the post schedule for us was very good, you know. But building such a complexity and you reuse it in different angles and parks, and that was a big challenge. And I think that's what the team should be the most proud of. They really came up with amazing ideas to achieve this in the time we had, and I know everybody involved on the show, on the production side, are very happy with the result as well, you know. So looking forward to season 2. I don't know, it hasn't been
Good.
announced yet, but
But
I would
hoping.
be very happy to work on it.
Yeah, best of luck with all your future projects, and here's hoping season 2. We'll see.
Yes, I'm hoping
Yes.
season 2 for sure. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Jeff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.